Hi guys, Geekonomics here again. Today I'm going to run through monopoly, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, natural monopoly, and then consider a few questions that we might get on the transport paper tomorrow morning. So let's get started. Hopefully, if you've seen my video from yesterday, we looked at perfect competition. So I'm going to run through now the other extreme, which is monopoly. And you'll remember we said yesterday that the monopolist has the ability to set the price, and therefore the monopolist is referred to as a price maker. In terms of our diagram, you'll recall yesterday we had two diagrams, one for the industry and one for the firm. Well, of course, the textbook definition of a monopoly is where we have a single supplier, and that single supplier makes up 100% of the market share in theory. In reality, it's only 25%, gives you monopoly status and monopoly power. But the fact that it's just one supplier means that the diagram that we're drawing is for the industry. There's no distinction here between the industry and the individual firm. So standard sort of layout for our axes, price and quantity is sufficient. You can do cost and revenues on the y-axis as well, but price and quantity is quite sufficient. So our demand curve, you'll know, is the average revenue curve on these market structure diagrams. So AR, also known as the demand curve. And you'll recall yesterday that when we drew the perfect competition diagram, we said that P equals AR equals MR. And I gave you a little example of why that's the case. And it's the case because the perfectly competitive firm sells as many goods at once at the same price. If you haven't seen why that is, check out my previous video from yesterday on perfect competition. This one on monopoly, because the average revenue curve slopes downwards from left to right, it means that the marginal revenue also slopes downwards. So that's our MR curve. Marginal revenue being the change in total revenue from selling one additional product. And again, you could work that through in a table if you wanted, to just see why the marginal revenue is below the average revenue curve. Okay, what else do we need to add to our standard monopoly diagram? We need to add, we've got a demand curve, so we now need to add our supply curve, which is the marginal cost curve, as you'll be aware. And I tend to like to leave it like that until I have put in the equilibrium price and quantity. I think it's a much easier way to do this diagram, but if you're confident doing it another way, then by all means do so. So we know the profit maximizing output rule arises where MC is equal to MR, and we talked about that yesterday. So on our diagram, MC is equal to MR at this point here, where the MC curve is crossing the MR curve at that intersection. And from there, we get the equilibrium quantity. So we're going to take that down. That's Q, that's for the monopolist. Don't make the mistake of taking a dashed line across here and considering that as the price, because it's not. Where do we get the price from? We get the price not from the marginal revenue curve, we get the price from the average revenue curve, the demand curve. So we've got to take this dashed line up to the average revenue curve and then across to our price axis. So that's our price for the monopolist. As I said, it's at this stage then that I prefer to put on the last of the cost curves that we're missing here, which is the average total cost curve. You'll know from the analysis that we did yesterday, and if you've looked at one of my previous videos where I've compared monopoly and perfect competition, the minimum point of the ATC curve is here, where the MC curve is crossing the AR curve. The reason for that is because it's linked into the perfectly competitive diagram that we looked at in a previous video, where we've got allocative and productive efficiency and perfect competition at this particular point where the MC curve is crossing the AR curve. So it's at this point. Now that point is there on this diagram. So we know that that is the minimum point there, and we know hence that it's the minimum point there. So what we want to do then is to just fill that out, take that across for the average cost curve, like so. And then we're going to put on the cost of the monopolist, level of output, QMON. So now we've got our diagram all set up to analyse monopoly. And let's just do that. So first things first, we can see the price, we can see the output. We can also see here we have a rectangular area where we have the price, which is of course the revenue, and we've got the cost. Price being greater than the cost, we've got that rectangle there. That is our what's referred to as lots of different things, depends what textbook you're using. Sometimes it's referred to as monopoly rent. Sometimes it's referred to as abnormal profit. Sometimes it's referred to as supernormal profit. All of these terms are, they're absolutely acceptable and they're totally interchangeable. So that's our monopoly rent. We then need to consider, and especially for the transport paper tomorrow, you really need to consider the efficiencies here. So in terms of efficiencies, we're looking at the static ones with regard to allocative and productive, and then we're looking to consider whether or not there are any dynamic efficiencies that can be exploited. So in terms of static, first of all, we've got our allocative efficiency, and as you'll be aware, allocative efficiency arises at the point where P is equal to MC. Now, on this diagram, that is not the case. Price does not equal the marginal cost of producing the last unit. And let's now consider why that is the case. Here we've got the price for the monopolist at the output of Q mon. What is the marginal cost of producing Q mon? Well, the marginal cost, ladies and gentlemen, comes from the marginal cost curve. And it's right there. It's the one that I told you a few moments ago. Don't put that as the price. That is the marginal cost of producing that level of output. And quite clearly, there's the price, there's the marginal cost. So price does not equal marginal cost. Indeed, price is greater than marginal cost. And as a consequence of that, we can say that the monopoly is not allocatively efficient. Other static efficiency to consider is, of course, productive efficiency. And we said yesterday, a firm is said to be productively efficient if the price is equal to the minimum point on the average total cost curve. Well, does price equal the minimum point on the average total cost curve at the monopoly level of output? Well, ladies and gentlemen, of course it doesn't. There's the minimum. We drew it deliberately through this intersection of MC and AR. Where is the monopolist's cost at a level of Q mon? The monopolist costs are there. So it's to the left on our diagram of the minimum point. So quite clearly, it is not productively efficient either, because price does not equal the minimum point in the average total cost curve. So we can see how highly inefficient a monopoly is. It's neither allocatively efficient, it's not productively efficient, and the monopolist is deliberately restricting the output in order to exploit the consumer and charge high prices. If you really wanted to, I mean, you could put on here, by way of comparison, you could take a line down here from the intersection of MC and AR, which gives you the perfectly competitive level of output, and you can see that the monopolist is deliberately restricting the level of output beneath its most efficient level for the benefit of the monopolist, and certainly not for the benefit of you, the consumer. So as a consequence of that, they're able to earn these abnormal profits, but at whose cost? At the cost of you and I, ladies and gentlemen. So that's static efficiency. What about then in terms of dynamic efficiencies? So over time. Well, the argument goes like this. The argument is that the monopolist, because they're earning these abnormal profits, they could over time use those abnormal profits, and indeed do, let's be fair about it, they do and can use them for research and development into new products, and as a consequence of that, that benefits us, the consumer. And there's also the argument that goes like this: because the monopolist is producing to the left-hand side of this minimum point on the ATC curve, that is an indicator that there are economies of scale to be exploited. Because, and sorry about the board work here, not my best, not my finest, but let me just put this up here. You'll know that your long-run average cost curve, COMSA, costs and output and so on, you'll know that that's made up of a series of individual short-run average cost curves. And they're all linked together, and they all represent, so short-run SAC 1, short-run average cost curve 2, short-run average cost curve 3, 4 and 5. So by the time you get to short-run average cost curve 5, you would actually end up at the minimum point on the long-run average cost curve. And so what we're saying is, the monopolist in effect is at this point here, and so if they increase their scale of production, they would move on to this new short-run average cost curve, which would then take them to the minimum point on the long-run average cost curve. And so in this way, they would be exploiting the economies of scale, and they could move to this minimum point, which would reduce their costs, and hence theory says, but of course whether or not it would happen in reality is an evaluative statement you may wish to make, cost of production would fall, and in effect they could then lower their prices. They could lower prices to compete at perfectly competitive price levels, but whether or not that would happen is another matter. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is our analysis of monopoly.